while we're waiting for Superintendent Thurman to arrive, let's have Doug Everett, Director of Student Wellness and Health Promotion at the University of California, Irvine. Mr. Everhart, thank you for joining us today. And introduce her now or later. Okay, let's also have Cindy Bagley come up as well, and I'll introduce you in a second. Thank you. Good morning. Thanks for coming.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Grab my glasses. Chairman Rendon and members of the panel, I appreciate the opportunity to be here to talk about happiness and what we're doing specifically at UC Irvine for happiness. I am the director of the Center for Student Wellness and Health Promotion at UC Irvine. And I sent some things through Katie that you should have in your packet that I'll be referencing today to give you some foundations on how we look at happiness. And I'm going to be talking more about well-being because happiness doesn't happen without the foundation of well-being occurring first. And the first one I'd like to bring your attention to is the frogs in the pond slide, which basically explains how we do our work. Oftentimes, we live in this Western medical society. We wait for frogs to behave strangely. In this case, maybe they're unhappy. And rather than rush to find out what's wrong with the frogs, maybe we need to look at what's happening in the pond. What is the pond doing to create the behavior that we maybe want to change? So we tend to look at the setting or the infrastructure, the environment and the culture of our setting, being UCI, to do that work. The next piece is the snail model that my colleague Paula Swinford created out of USC. And it basically talks about the difference between health promotion, prevention, and health education. Health promotion is really a salutogenic approach, which comes from the positive side of health. We want to assume that everybody starts with the intent to be healthy and well and happy, rather than the pathogenic approach, which is we wait for people to be ill and have challenges and then rush to fix them. So the salutogenic approach is really what health promotion is about, and that means looking at the pond or the setting and creating a culture and the opportunity and capacity for people to be well. So that's the foundation of the work we do at UC Irvine. We're part of the United States Health Promoting Campuses Network, which is part of a network of campuses across the country that are working to adopt the Okanagan Charter, which was written in 2015. That charter is a global international document that helps colleges and universities around the world use their place in society to research and create strategy to create settings and communities of well-being. So that's what we're doing at UCI. We use health promotion strategy, meaning upstream approaches like policy development, teaching people skills to be healthy and well, and creating cultures of well-being. So specifically what UCI is doing, so the approach is, again, we support happiness versus really focusing on preventing illness or sadness. Not that that other work is not important. I want to make sure that that's clear as well. So we do things as a health promoting university to create a culture of well-being using the Okanagan Charter as a guiding document. Since we adopted the charter in 2021, we were one of the first 8 campuses to do so. There are now 30 campuses across the country that have officially adopted the charter, and almost 300 campuses looking to adopt the charter. We have made well-being an institutional value that we're using the Geneva Charter, which defines globally what well-being is, meaning you invest in well-being. It's a political choice to promote well-being. So those are the foundations that guide our work at UCI as an institution, because you can't have happiness without well-being to start with. So we're doing things, and yes, we do programs and services, which I'll highlight a few of the things we do. We had a happiness day in the spring where one of our positive psychology professors organized a day of happiness where student organizations came out and just talked about the different things they do as an organization to promote happiness and well-being. We do Wednesday wellness walks. We know there's a lot of research that says being out in nature, and I know one of our panelists today is here to talk about nature. Being out in nature is definitely good for your mental health. So we do Wednesday wellness walks. We have some great nature preserves on our campus and in our local community. So we introduce our students, faculty, and staff to being out in those nature spaces. We have a distress fest every finals week. We're on the quarter system, so 3 quarters of the year during finals week, we bring in therapy dogs, have healthy snacks, healthy food. We remind students that yes, this is a stressful week, but taking care of your well-being and managing your stress is part of being well and happy. So we bring out therapy dogs and all of those things to remind them that there are resources here to support you. We have a behind happy faces training. Many people hide behind a happy face when they're really struggling inside. So we talk to students about it's okay to struggle. Everybody struggles to a certain extent. But what's important is we know how to manage that stress, how to respond to those challenges, and use the resources available to us. And lastly, we have an Institute for Pedagogical Wellness. We're working with our faculty to teach them how to create well-being in the classroom so that students know that the faculty and the institution cares about their well-being, not only philosophically, but as part of their classroom experience. So basically, from a public policy perspective, my question would be is how do we fix the pond? So in this context today, we're talking about the state of California and how do we make people happy. Well, how are we making California a place that supports and can create capacity for people to be happy?
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. A couple questions for Mr. Everhart. I'm curious about Happiness Week at UCI and how that went, and if there were particular. I'm sure you're always trying to improve your models. What worked? What didn't? What did you see was the most effective? What were the most effective activities?
Well, I'm going to be careful in comments because it wasn't my event. It was one of our faculty members.
Sure.
But one of our peer educators out of our office helped organize it. And I think the students are just really looking to re-engage.
Yeah.
I think this coming out of the pandemic that everybody's been talking about is a big issue. So I think the students are begging for ways to engage. But what we're finding in our office is we're having to reteach just the basics of starting a conversation and building relationships, right? So we can have social programs and expect students to come and say, here's an opportunity, but if their anxiety, because they were isolated for 3 years and they missed out on a lot of those opportunities to learn how to start a conversation and build relationships.
So you mean that literally?
I mean that literally.
Wow.
So one of the things we're doing this year is our office is, because we tried the social program and have students come, but we had more and more students just say, I'm having trouble making friends, I'm having trouble meeting people. So we're actually going to work with the School of Social Sciences, and we're going to start changing our programmatic model to do a social event and have it be educational, but not call it an educational program, and invite faculty, staff, and students from a school and give them prompts. Tell me about your family. Tell me about your hobbies. Tell me about your pets. Those conversation starters that really teach people conversation 101. Because the faculty say there's this generational gap and, the youth of today and students today just aren't the same and I can't connect with them. And the students will say, the faculty are intimidating. I can't talk to the faculty. There's this power dynamic. Well, it's all the same thing. They're both anxious of each other. So let's bring it back to basics and really teach people how to re-engage in in-person conversations. So I think that's literally a piece of the puzzle that is critical. So that's why we go back to those foundations of really starting with well-being before you can expect things like happiness and flourishing and thriving. We need to teach people some of the basics of just how do you be in a space with others and build community.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I think a lot of what we found in this committee has been, be careful how I say this, there's a lot of obvious things, and then you think, well, if they're so obvious, why don't you do them? And I think that sort of mindfulness is a big part of that, and things like being able to start conversations are things that are so. Like, I was surprised when you said that. I wasn't sure what you were even talking about, and I think that's very helpful from that perspective, and would probably be helpful for a lot of legislators who don't like to talk about themselves. So that maybe can do those classes here. I had another question for you. And actually, there's a great article in the Journal for Higher Education. It came out about a year ago, using Colby College and a few other in Maine and a couple of other places as examples of universities that have sort of turned themselves inside out, where the campus sort of spreads into this neighboring city, which I think Colby's in Waterton, Maine. And so they have classes in the city. They have all the volunteer activities are in the city, so that the college is no longer a isolated space, and it becomes, one with the city. So when you talk about students wanting to engage and re-engage, I think that complements that to a large extent. Have you seen that as well at UCI? It's I know it's a big campus.
Yeah.
And I find the design really interesting, and that that's sort of the circles.
The circle.
Yeah, are almost.
It's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, I could imagine. Yeah, beautiful park on the inside,
Right.
but you wonder if people are more inclined to go inward rather than outward. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, a couple of things with that model. Because before I was at UC Irvine, I was at UC Riverside, where everything crisscrossed through the bell tower.
Go Highlanders.
Go Highlanders. So everything happened at the bell tower because that's where you could see everybody crisscross at some point during the day. When the campus is built in a circle, and at the center of the circle is a park, unless you have a specific reason to go to the park, you live on the circle.
Yeah.
So if you're in the School of Engineering and the School of Social Sciences is here and the Student Center is here, unless you're, have a reason to be somewhere else on the circle, you're not necessarily interacting with others. So that's another structural piece that we have to grapple with. So we're really trying to work on activating our park to get more people there.
Yeah.
So there's that piece. Then expanding out, the Okanagan Charter, actually part of the charter says scaling out. So universities are known for their research strategies for creating solutions, but then it's about scaling out to your local and global community to show the rest of the world what's working in your researched environment, and then sharing that out. So we're actually partnering with the community on a lot of different things. Sustainability is an example that comes to mind. We're partnering our School of Engineering and Physical Sciences, looking at different green energy sources. So compressed hydrogen is a new thing that we're researching in engineering and physical sciences. So we're partnering with SoCal Gas to really look at how can we really scale this out on a much broader scale. Where I live 60 miles inland in the San Bernardino area, and we just launched our first hydrogen-powered rail system.
Mm-hmm.
So the Metrolink has a hydrogen-fueled, clean emitting train line. So we're working on things like that, and then the parks, and we work with the schools. We work with all kinds of things to really build those connections, so that it's not that's UCI over there, and then this is the rest of the Irvine community. So we're really looking at those partnerships, because that's, again, what the Okanagan Charter is talking about.
Cool. I appreciate that. And I think what you made me think about, interesting intersection between what you both do. I was thinking of the urban, Jane Jacobs, who's an urban theorist, talked a lot about she didn't like large parks. She thought that large parks tended to be dormant at night in particular. And she was a big proponent of pocket parks, and she thought all big parks should be broken up and sort of interspersed with housing and built into smaller parks. And that's interesting. It was specifically because of that activation issue that she felt that there were great to have large swaths of land, but often they're
So Irvine specifically is built into these different villages, we call them, right? So each village in the community, in this big circle that is Irvine, has its own park, its own shopping center, its own school. So everything, even though it's a big city, it's made up of 6 or 7 different villages, and each one is intentionally developed to include park space and open space and play space, but also the other things that you need.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I appreciate both of you, Ms. Bagley and Mr. Everhart. Thank you so much. Great panel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.